What's going on, guys? This is Crazy Kent here, and today I'm here to bring you another book review. Yay! I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, especially since the last book review I did was Spider-Man Hostile Takeover that was based off the Insomniac game, and honestly, I wasn't all too proud of that one because even though it was my first video going in on my new reading channel, I felt like I was just rushing through it. Like I didn't have time to get my notes together. I didn't have enough time to pretty much do some research on the book before going into it. And the entire time when I pretty much recorded my voice while talking about the book, I'm not gonna lie, I actually talked about the book for an hour. That means going through the entire story and the ending to the point where I had to cut a good bit of it out so I don't spoil it for you. But I'm not going to be talking about the book for this video. Today, I'm going to be talking about another Marvel book, which is based off of my favorite ragtag team of superheroes, which in my opinion are better than the Avengers. You can fight me on this all day. I'm still going to say they're better than the Avengers, which are the Guardians of the Galaxy, or in this case, two Guardians of the Galaxy, which is, of course, Rocket and Groot. Now, for those of you that don't know this about me, I am a huge fan when it comes to Rocket and Groot. Well, mostly Rocket Raccoon, honestly, because ever since I saw the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie in 2014, I've been literally a Guardians fan ever since then. I bought the CD. I would listen to the CD on road trips. I would listen to the CD when I'm just driving in my car. And then around that time there was the Rocket Raccoon comics that pretty much came out, so I started collecting them. And I love the artwork by Scotty Young, and it was a trip for me. I love the character. I still do. I love Groot. I love the Guardians. They're just my favorite team of heroes. You can have X-Men, you can have the Avengers, you can have all that shit, but still Guardians is still my most favorite team of heroes. So of course, when I was finishing up with the Spider-Man book, I was in Books a Million the other day, and I found a book that was based off of the two characters themselves. And it was one hell of a long title, and it's going to be hard for me to say right here. So, the name of the title is Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket Raccoon and Groot Steal the Galaxy.
That's a fake laugh.
It's real.
Yeah, that's one hell of a long ass title. But going into it, I was kind of skeptical on picking up this book, even though that it was on clearance for like $3. So thank God I didn't have to spend all that much money on it, because usually small books around paperback usually cost around $7 to $10. So at least I paid like $3. So that's good. I paid like $7 less. And in most cases, I pretty much try to steer clear of books that are novelizations of movies or novelizations of comic books, like novelizations of other media. But as Spider-Man Hostile Takeover has taught me, sometimes when you pick up a book, and sometimes when it's based off of another property, it doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, because, you know, it could add something new to the story, or it could be something different that you never really expected. So I never really expected anything phenomenal to come out of this novel, but you know, it's Rocket and Groot, so I figured, well, it's definitely gonna have some laughs. I'm hoping it's gonna have some laughs. So I bought the book and everything, and now here I am talking about it. It took me a while, but I was busy with a lot of other things. But honestly, I'm proud of myself because it literally took me 2 weeks to actually finish this book. And now I finally got my notes together on my laptop. So the first thing I want to talk about regarding the book is the author, whose name is Dan Abnett. And from doing research on him, he's an award-winning British author who's worked on a lot of things in the past. He's written different comic book stories as well. Like he written some early Doctor Who comic book stories. So he's been experimenting and writing a lot of stuff based off of not just Marvel, but also DC Comics properties. And his forte is writing fantasy books. I don't know how many of you are fans of the Warhammer 40,000 series. I'm not a big fan of those. I'm not a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer. Let's go ahead and get that out there. I tried to learn about the games. They're just not my thing. So don't hate me or spam my comments. I'm just not a fan. He's even written one book based off of the Tomb Raider games. Yeah, I'm thinking about taking a look at that. He's also known for his works on video games as well. As a matter of fact, he actually had a role in making Alien Isolation as well as Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor. Those are two things I did not know, and I love both of those games. So if anything, if this is the guy who had a hand in making these games, or at least writing the story for these games, you know we're in for something good here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and shut up, get right into the story. So I hope you guys enjoy the going into the book and everything. Let's go. So the story centers around Guardian members, the walking, talking, gunslinging Raccoon himself, Rocket and Groot, as they're pretty much sitting in the bar. And this is where the story kicks off. So as they're sitting in the bar, they come across a Regillian recorder, which is one of many androids that are tasked with wandering the universe and collecting data on everything that they pretty much see. So basically, they're walking, talking encyclopedias. So while they're pretty much sitting down having their drink, this particular android was attacked by a group of aliens known as the Badoon. And they are pretty much trying to take him captive because apparently this particular android, who is 127, and basically what they're saying is he actually has information that is the key to controlling the universe. And that only means one thing, that everybody wants it. Like, I mean, everybody. Who's everybody? Well, you're going to find out later on. So Rocket and Groot take it upon themselves to take this android into their custody just so they can find out what's so important about him, so they can sell him. I didn't say they were heroes, but you know, that's, you got to do what you got to do to pay the bills. You know what I'm saying? So of course, throughout their adventures, Rocket and Groot, they travel to different planets and different worlds to try and figure out the secrets that are held within their new android buddy, while dodging every single hostile group of aliens and empires and whatever, trying to kill them in order to get it first. So yeah, this is a typical Rocket and Groot adventure if you think about it. Like, if you know the characters for that long, especially if you've been reading up on their adventures in comics or watching some shorts based around them, it's pretty normal in the life of Rocket and Groot. And my thoughts on the story were, going into it, I was enjoying the story for what it was, which was a comedy adventure, because basically that's what Rocket and Groot are all about. They're all about comedy. And since it's based off of two comic book characters that never take itself too seriously, at least the story never takes itself too seriously. In all honesty, the book itself felt like it could be the workings of an actual spin-off or a movie series based on Rocket and Groot due to the tone of the book. So what I mean was, because of the fact that it was a story that doesn't really take itself seriously, this is a story where you can actually sit down, read it, and enjoy it. And it doesn't make you feel sad. It doesn't make you feel upset. It doesn't make you feel like sympathy for the characters. No, it just makes you sit there and enjoy it like you're having a fun time, because, you know, the Guardians are always having a knack for getting themselves into trouble, and it's always fun to see because they're doing what they're doing, which is guarding the galaxy, but at the same time, they can't do it without pissing somebody off. And that's funny. So despite the colorful language, don't worry parents, I'm sure your kids won't be harmed by the word flark. They probably won't even know what it means because it's alien. This is something that both the kids and adults can get a kick out of. It sort of reminds me of the Rocket and Groot miniseries on Disney XD. This is the show I was pretty much talking about, which if you haven't seen it, you can easily watch it on YouTube via their channel to get more of an idea on the tone of the characters and their antics. Now, to get a better view of the tone that the book is trying to set, I think it would be better if you actually sit down and watch Rocket and Groot, because that also has the same type of tone, where it's just Rocket and Groot doing whatever they can to make some money and so on and so forth. And the tone itself isn't all that serious. They're not trying to stop a bad guy or anything. They're just, doing what they can to survive in the most funniest way. And so when I watched that and when I read the book, it kind of helped set up the tone for me of what the book was going for. Like, it wasn't trying to be like another superhero story where the hero has to do good or the bad guys are doing something evil. It's just Rocket and Groot, just doing what they do and pissing people off while doing it. If you haven't seen the Disney XD show, I would suggest you give it a watch. It's definitely enjoyable, and I'm still watching it to this day. I think I've watched it like 100 something times. It's that hilarious and that entertaining. Now, the narrative for the book was actually kind of different because the story is being told by the android recorder himself, speaking within the first person point of view and recalling events that's happened within his sight or around him that he records in great detail. And even in some events where he's never physically there to tell the story, but it makes it seem as if it's all part of the information he's retelling us. So what it is that going into the book, the recorder makes it clear that he's recorded everything that happens throughout this adventure. But it shows that in some cases where he pretty much talks about his experience, like when he's around Rocket or when he's around Groot and everything, and he talks about what goes on when he's there. When the story goes to certain characters or places where the recorder isn't at that moment, it kind of sets up the question, like, how does he know it happened around this time? Or how does he know when it happened at this specific time, to the point where he's telling us, the audience? So what my best bet is that while he's pretty much recalling all the memories and the data and everything, I guess there might be a supercomputer that pretty much cross-analyzed everything that's been going on in the universe, and then, he compiled it with his views, and then next thing you know, he uses it to put the story together. Or at least that's the best way I can put it. A genius! But other than that, it's gonna confuse you a little bit, but you get used to it going into the book. And throughout the narrative, he starts to give references to our Earth culture as a means to provide comedic referencing in the story. For example, like chapter 12, our Al Capone moment. Once again, see how I make human culture reference to ease your comprehension of the story, gentle and generous reader. And this is where he pretty much goes into explanation in case you're an idiot who doesn't even know who the Flark Al Capone was. So he says, but just to explain, Al Capone was a notorious criminal of your 20th Earth century. Really? I didn't notice. Despite his horrendous acts of felony, he was only jailed because of a comparatively minor charge of tax evasion. I mean, he's not wrong there. I have recorded this fact thanks to the repeated viewing of a Kevin Costner movie, which also features Sean Connery not doing an accent, and that, gentle readers, is the Chicago way. Even in his most corniest, it's still kind of funny. And this is probably one of the best things about this book. This book makes you laugh no matter what. It gets a laugh out of you no matter how much you don't want to laugh at its corniness. It's that funny. And with the recorder telling it, you think it's going to be boring because of the fact that it's like a computer reading you a book. But it's not, because he actually tries to apply more emotion to it to try to make it more comprehensive for you to pretty much understand the story and the narrative. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's a pretty funny take. I'm not going to lie. And my thoughts on this were that at first, I wasn't a big fan of this particular means of telling the story, but after getting used to it, the recorder turned out to be an interesting character, which he did. He really did. It was like everything he was doing was trying to make the reader more comfortable with him telling the story, even down to him reprogramming the way he tells the story to make it more comprehensible to the reader, not wanting it to sound boring as flark. Yeah, I'm still sorry that I'm saying that. But after a while, I actually started reading it a bit more, and I got used to the narrative and whatnot. So it wasn't all that bad. It wasn't that bad. As far as the characters go, there's obviously the main two characters that the book is based off of, in case you haven't noticed. And the book also includes Gamora within the fold, who is another Guardian member and is known as the most deadliest woman in the galaxy. But, I mean, if you see Zoe Saldana in green, she is... Unfortunately, she never really joins up with Rocket and Groot in the beginning of the story. Actually, she joins up with them later on when she was given a task by another Marvel villain of the Negative Zone, who is known as Annihilus. And he also is one of the many characters that are looking to take the recorder just so he can pretty much use him to pretty much take control of the universe and so on and so forth. The only problem is he doesn't show up except once throughout the entire book. So yeah, the whole thing was that he hires Gamora to pretty much steal the recorder. First of all, I understand that in this book the Guardians are pretty much split up for right now, like they're on hiatus and whatnot, and you know, she's just doing this for money and whatnot. But if this man's name is Annihilus, and he is probably one of the most dangerous Marvel villains, and I know this because I did research on him. If he's one of the most dangerous Marvel villains, then why in the God's green earth are you even working for him in the first place? Like, this does not sound like something Gamora would do. Even if it was for money, this doesn't sound like something she would do. Unless I pretty much don't know all that much about the comic book version of Gamora. I'm probably mostly basing this off of the Guardians version of Gamora. I kind of felt like Gamora always had that motherly side to where she's, you know, she's caring and everything. But and it shows in this book too. It's just that it also shows that she's really good at hiding it as well. But yeah, Annihilus, he doesn't show up at all in the book. Not at all. And also Gamora pretty much betrays him anyway, so it doesn't really flarking matter. Other characters included are the members of different races that are also after the recorder, which includes the Badoon, which are the aliens that Rocket and Groot pretty much had to deal with in the beginning of the book, the Nova Corps, which are basically the police force of the said galaxy, and then there's the Kree. If you know who Ronan the Accuser is off of the first Guardians movie, then yeah, you should know who these people are. And the Shi'ar. Yeah, it took me a lot to do some research on these aliens, and I would go into detail of what I found out, but I'm not going to waste your time. All I know is that these guys are trying to go after the android just so they can take control of the universe or try to keep it out of the other one's hands. And as it turns out, the Guardians now face a space knight, and yes, there are space knights, by the name of Romer, who was sent by a space company known as Timely Inc., who were trying to take control of the universe in the first place. As for all this, it's basically a slew of characters that, to my knowledge and to the research into the Marvel's databases, don't even make an appearance in any other Guardian story or any other storyline in the Marvel universe, save for Annihilus. But like I said, it's like he never even existed in the first place. Honestly, I didn't even know this character even existed before I read this book. I never knew anything about him, even with the fact that it doesn't even matter if all I did was watch mostly Marvel movies or Marvel TV shows and I didn't read all that much of the comics. It shows you just how unpopular this character is. So there was really no point in him being in the story at all. I mean, hell, you could have just taken him out of the story to begin with and just put Gamora in there. The whole purpose for these characters is to hunt down this one android to use his knowledge to either control the universe or prevent the knowledge from falling into the wrong hands of the other races. That is, when they're not hunting down Rocket, Groot, and Gamora, which I must remind you though, they may be the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they are still intergalactic criminals, mind you. that manage to piss off everyone and everything that they come across on their adventures. And now the irony is just funny because of the fact that while they're trying to save the universe, everybody in the story either wants them arrested or wants them dead. And it's just funny. It just literally has you saying, yep, this is the normal life of being a Guardian. And one pet peeve I pretty much have about the characters is that when it comes to the book and all these characters and all the story that develops around these characters to keep the story moving along, it sometimes takes away its focus away from where it should shine the most. And that's with Rocket and Groot, you know, the two characters that the book is mostly named after. And it made it seem like they're not even all that much important at all in the story. Like, they're not even the main focus. I mean, if that was the case, and if you were going to shoehorn in more characters out of nowhere that don't even make an appearance in any other Marvel media, that don't even make an appearance in any other Marvel comics, that were only created for this novel, you might as well just go ahead and pretty much call it the title for what it is, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Stealing the Universe, or Stealing the Galaxy, or whatever. I don't know. All I know is that, like, you could have just gone with a title like that, because when you call your title Guardians of the Galaxy, Rocket and Groot Steal the Galaxy, my main focus should be on Rocket and Groot, but it's not. It's mainly on other characters that we're never going to see again, that only existed for the book. So by the time when the book ends, you forget that the characters were there at all. Like, seriously, I forgot half of the characters' name at this point, and most of them were brought in, like, literally in the climax and the ending of the book. So there was literally no point in bringing in these characters. But it's my opinion and everything, so I'm just going to leave it at that. So we're going into my final thoughts on the books, because let's go ahead and be honest, there's really nothing else for me to say about the book, and I'm not trying to tell you the entire book. You might as well just read it for yourself. But my final thoughts are that I was pretty skeptical going into this book, especially since I thought it was a novel that's going to be based off of characters and stories which you can sit down and read a comic book about them in order to get the story itself. But the book managed to prove me wrong throughout the reading. It's proven to me that you can do a lot more with a book that you can't do with any film or comic that you've ever seen or read. Now, is this something that I would say shouldn't be adapted into a comic book, a movie, or a show? Well, I wouldn't really go that far. I really wouldn't, because this book has its own style that I have to admit, out of all the comics and shows I read based on Rocket and Groot, this is definitely something with a lot of awesome ideas that I think Marvel fans would love to see in a different form. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like the Rocket and Groot miniseries that I pretty much went over. It just goes to show you that there are some writers out there that understand Marvel's characters and the worlds that Marvel creates enough to where they can actually make it work in novel form. And when you make it work in novel form, it just makes it feel like it could be so much better if it's something that you can actually watch or see to enjoy and believe. That's why this book actually, and I'm not kidding here, this book, you can actually pretty much download it off of Graphic Audio, which is an app that you can pretty much download off the Amazon store. And this is not, and I repeat, this is not advertisement. I am not sponsored by Graphic Audio, although I wish I was, but this is not it. Graphic Audio is basically an app where you can pretty much download most of these stories, from Spider-Man to Captain America, X-Men, and so on and so forth. So it's basically like an audiobook service, except it kind of makes it feels like you're watching an actual movie as it's going on. Like, it has its own sound, it has its own voice acting, so on and so forth. I never really tried it, but I might give it a try after this video. But my feelings about writers that know a lot about Marvel and the characters in the world, it It's still the same from how I felt when I was reading Spider-Man Hostile Takeover. Granted, even though that it's a book that's based off of a video game, it still has a good idea of that Spider-Man's world. It's the same feeling that I get from reading this. In my opinion, this makes it a definite must read. Like, if you ever see this book at your local bookstore, please check it out. Like, seriously, just sit down, read it, buy it, do whatever you want. Just give the book a shot. Because I actually enjoyed every single moment of it. I love every single moment of it. I was laughing. I was into it. I literally would sit down and pretty much put on some music in order to shut everything else up around me to not watch. See, now it's making me feel like I went to see a movie. It shows just how great of a book it is. Please give it a read. It's definitely worth it, and it's definitely worth your time.